Hello all my Kenvians and welcome to a brand new episode of Discovering Steven Universe. Today, the episode I'm going to be watching is Keeping It Together. And hopefully I can keep it together because it's been very stressful here recently. And there might be a little bit of background noise, hopefully not as much as when Jill is watching TV in the other room. But yeah, there may still be a little bit of background noise, but that's besides the point. Let's get right into it and begin watching Steven Universe, Keeping It Together. Oh, and just so you know, I did not have a hot dog. No, I did not have a hot dog for dinner. However, I did have some barbecue pulled pork. So, if every pork chop were perfect, we also wouldn't have pulled pork. And it's delicious.
I thought it was so you could help me fold all this laundry.
He has so many of the same shirts. I only have one.
I just really enjoy doing all of those things.
Oh, well, there you go.
Better if we do them together.
We can't let PERIDOT restart gem production here.
Mm.
We do.
Still a sore spot for Amethyst.
Janked.
Janked?
Garnet! That mouth!
Don't worry. We'll stop it.
Might be dangerous.
Peridot's got nothing we can't handle.
Hopefully so. Otherwise, this might end up being a very dark episode.
Other ones with you. Of course. Why not?
No. There's something weird about the animation.
Hurry, Garnet! Whoa!
Oh my god. Good lord.
These were crystal gems, shattered into pieces. They were buried. I'm sorry.
No,
Oh,
Garnet!
holy crap.
You're coming undone! Garnet! Garnet!
Oh, Garnet's pissed. Good lord.
We did it!
Time.
Oh my god.
Couldn't have known. This is punishment for the rebellion. It's not our fault.
Garnet!
Oh my god.
Steven.
Go!
S-
We're back.
I wasn't entirely wrong?
PERIDOT. Her fingers were
Wrong time.
That's why you're so great. Oh no!
Don't want to break up a pair.
Yeah, you're right. They belong together.
Okay, that's adorable. Of course, checking to see if anything changes with the song. Nope, nothing different. Trying to stop it before the... Ah! Couldn't get it! Oh, right. Well, I was kind of right as far as it getting dark there. But, yeah, I'm definitely gonna need to put my thoughts down here, and I will be back with you all in just a moment for the review portion of this video. Alright, all my Kenvians, welcome back, and it is time for the review portion of this video. And before I go along, just in case you missed it, because it came out a little while before, if you would like to see my thoughts on the extended intro, there will be a link to it in the description down below. Just in case, you know, some of you all were wanting that, but you missed it when I put it up. But anyway, as for my thoughts on Keeping It Together, oh boy, this episode. But as always, let's start with my favorite parts, starting with just the folding clothes, the part where all of them are folding clothes together. I think the reason why it was one of my favorite things is, number one, just the insane amount of the same shirts that Steven seems to have. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we've seen him in some different shirts before, haven't we? I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's worn some, different shirts before. So I was kind of surprised that, at least not a few others appeared in there, but hey, he has a lot of something he really likes, so that works. But just the whole segment there, Amethyst's complete disdain in doing it. But then also, it's revealed how Pearl basically takes over the chore wheel. Because those are all things she really likes to do. And I just found that really funny and adorable in a way, so that's why it's one of my favorite parts. My next favorite part is the fact that this episode both confirmed and the Gem's thoughts, or the Crystal Gem's thoughts on Peridot, basically matched up with my own theory as far as what Peridot would do next, which is to go to the kindergarten and to reactivate the kindergarten, which, again, like, as far as my thoughts and the Crystal Gems there, that's consistent. But then comes the fact where they actually get there, and we find out that no, she hasn't reactivated it. She's been there for however long, but she hasn't reactivated the kindergarten, so what is she looking for? But moving on from there, my next favorite part is just the simple fact that Peridot can fly with her hand. I found that rather interesting. It's I don't know. I'm interested to find out more about her as a character, because I mean, are all of her inventions sort of an extension of herself? Like, is she able to just make the little orb bots or whatever they were? Do those just sort of come from her, or does she make them? Are those even her real hands, or are those her weapons that, come forth as, Pearl's spears and swords do, and Amethyst's whip? And I'm curious if that's the case. Or, well, basically, are they sort of like Garnet's gauntlets? Do they work that way? The only real difference there is I haven't seen so far any instances where Peridot doesn't have them. So I don't know. I'm just curious about that to find out more. But yeah, just the fact that she can fly with her hand, I really like that part. And then moving on, it's like we get more of the discussion between Steven and Garnet as to what happens when Ruby and Sapphire fuse, essentially answering some of my curiosities. Thanks, Windows. Answering some of my curiosities as far as Ruby and Sapphire sometimes maybe taking over a little bit, but then at the same time, we actually get like a split conversation between like Ruby and Sapphire in Garnet's form, which just completely blew me away. Like, it was almost a Smeagol or Gollum moment there. I just found that really creepy and intense. And then my next favorite part, in a way, I guess you could say, is when we find out what Peridot was up to, and we find out that these gem shards had been forced together, essentially, like forced into a fusion. And I don't know if that's something that Peridot herself did, or if that's something that was sort of a leftover almost from the Gem Wars or whatever they call them. But not only that, but it's like, not only that revealed, but how it affects Garnet. Which actually brings me to my next favorite part, was just the scene where Garnet nearly splits apart. Like, it basically happened. We see her, like, the only things that are still connected are basically her head, and then like the very bottom of her torso. I mean, leading me to believe that they were within, like, moments of splitting apart, just out of the sheer terror and what all was going on there. But then also going back to what I mentioned earlier, the fact that we got that scene afterward of seemingly Ruby and Sapphire arguing, or the two personalities sort of like struggling back and forth as far as like trying to figure out what's going on there. It went from perhaps an inner monologue to a very outward one. So yeah, that was a crazy moment for me. And then finally, the very last scene of the episode, where we end with not only Steven learning a little bit more about what it is to be Garnet when Ruby and Sapphire fuse, and why she's able to stay together as long as she does, but just the pink and blue socks. It just what that symbolized was, I mean, it's very on the nose, but at the same time, it's very cute and a really nice way to end an episode that was admittedly rather terrifying, or at least for that particular segment was rather terrifying. So those are all my favorites. As for my annoyances, and this is a very light annoyance for me. You know, I've talked about how sometimes the animation has really bothered me at times in the past. And in this episode, it did kind of irk me a little bit, but it wasn't necessarily bad. It was just that certain aspects and like facial expressions of some of the characters reminded me a lot of the show Ren and Stimpy, and how some of their facial expressions could be. I just found that to be really bizarre. And again, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is something that, while watching, it did take me out of, the experience a little bit, and it definitely stood out to me. It may not bother other people as much, but for me, it was just the slightest bit of an annoyance for this episode. And as for a moment of terror, I don't think that I have to explain much here, but when we see the shards that were forced to fuse, like these little zombie limbs that's crawling everywhere, they didn't really, except for the bigger one, it didn't seem to pose any real threat, at least seemingly so. But at the same time, it's just pure terror of these undead amalgamates just coming after them, and especially if that is your species. Like, it's one thing to just view it as, watching something sci-fi, or just like, oh, that's weird. It's like, because we've seen the hand, or I feel like we've seen things from the shards before, where it's like, the rogue hands or whatever, and other things that ran amok in the fortress. It's called a fortress, right? Yeah. But things like that. But the fact that they were fused together just added this factor to the creepiness that just really put it over the edge, or at the very least brought it close to the edge. But those are all my, favorite parts, my annoyances, and of course my moment of terror. So if you have any of your own you would like to share, please do leave them in the comments down below. Now, moving on, I didn't really have a track of the episode for this one, but I would have to say that probably the most appropriate track for this entire episode was just the very creepy and subtle music playing during that scene with all the shards, or all the fused shards coming after them. And that also added to the sort of zombie-esque feeling, because it just felt, again, very subtle, but also filled with horror. And so, again, I don't have a name for it as for most of the tracks, but I would consider that maybe my track of the episode. As for my quote of the episode, there's a lot of really great, meaningful lines in this episode, especially the ones where Garnet is talking to Steven about what it is to be her, what it is to be fused. But my quote of the episode is by far when Garnet says, "Janked." Because it's just so random. And the reaction it gets from the others, including Amethyst, it's just kind of like, you'd think that she had said, like, effed up, or something along those lines. I found that kind of adorable, and it's definitely the line that stood out the most to me in this episode. So yeah, that's my quote of the episode. Feel free to, save some of the ones that were obviously more meaningful in this episode in the comments if you wish. Now, I do have a question, and it's because this episode did leave me a little bit confused, but my question is, what did PERIDOT get? She said she got what she needed there. So what was it? Was it maybe the knowledge that gems can be forced together? I don't know, but I mean, that's just my big question. What did she get? And sort of building off of that, I do have a theory building off of this episode as well. But that theory is that all of the shards that they've bubbled, or maybe even some of the corrupted pieces, or I'm sorry, corrupted gems that the crystal gems have collected, that someone, maybe PERIDOT, is going to break into the fortress, take them all, and then sort of do this insane force fusion with all of them to make one gigantic creature, like an amalgamate beyond all other amalgamates, just pure chaos and destruction. Personally, I hope it doesn't go that way, because that would really be messed up. But, that's just my theory as far as that goes. Now, as for my overall thoughts on the episode, again, despite my, little quirks with the animation per se, I feel like it was a really strong episode. It took me by surprise with the horror elements. It hit all the nice little comedy notes as well. And again, even though it was an annoyance, the animation worked for me in a strange way, because I'm a fan of Ren and Stimpy, so the bizarre facial expressions that occurred at times sort of added to the episode in a strange way. So yeah, maybe you think it's stupid that I'm calling it an annoyance then, but still. But overall, really good episode. I don't know if maybe the next one is going to be another one of those, like, we're going to go in lulls. It's like, really cool episode, okay episode. Really good episode, okay episode, sort of in that pattern. But I hope this is the start of, another one of those series where the episodes just get better and better. Only one way to find out. But that is all I have to say about the episode Keeping It Together. As I mentioned before, if you have any of your own thoughts, anything you would like to add on, or even some thoughts on what I had to say here, please do leave them in the comments down below. I look forward to reading what you have to say. And as always, even if I'm not able to respond to you, I am doing my best to read all the comments that I can. I just, don't have a lot of time sometimes, so yeah, I'll do what I can. But also, before I close this, I do want to say thank you to all my patrons over on Patreon for just being absolutely amazing, and being so patient with, waiting for the videos to come out, because they do get them ahead of time. I try to aim for at least a day ahead of time, sometimes a bit less, like maybe a couple of hours is what it ends up being. But I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for your patronage. But even if you're not a patron, thank you all so very much for watching this video, for commenting, and just being the amazing Kenvians that you are. And I hate to get a little bit, too ahead of myself here, but we're on the road to 3,000 subscribers, and that's just amazing. But that's the end of this episode, and I will see you all next time for We Need to Talk. Until next time, everyone, I am Papa Kenn, and I will see you in the next episode.